Apple is known for making really great products. They're also known for making really great products with really small storage options. And this 2015 MacBook Pro is a prime example of that. It is an awesome machine that has a 250 gigabyte SSD in there. And that's way too small. So we're going to take care of that today by upgrading the hard drive. Let's get going. Hey everybody, it's Chris from Family Geekery, and today we are going to take this 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro, which is an absolutely awesome machine, and we're going to make it a little bit awesomer. So these things are great. I've had a couple of them over the years, and I've always loved them. It's the last real model that you can upgrade things like the hard drive on, and it's the last model before they went with the butterfly keys in the 2016 model. That was a nice, slim model, but I just hated that keyboard. So this one has a really nice keyboard. It's got the force feedback trackpad. So we're going to take a look at this and see what it's going to take to upgrade that hard drive, because it's got a 250 gigabyte hard drive, and that's just silly. When this thing came out, it was a $2,000 laptop, and that's going to come with the base 250 gigabyte SSD. And to go up probably to the 500 gigabyte drive is probably another $200, which is just ridiculous. To add insult to injury, they use a proprietary SSD drive that makes it just hard to upgrade. Now, OWC, which makes a lot of great products for MacBooks, made a drive that they called the Aura drive, and it was compatible with this kind of pinout. But they were really expensive too. But over the years, of course, you give geeks enough time, they're going to figure out a way to do things cheaper and better. And today we're going to be using an adapter called the Sintech. That a couple different companies make these. The Sintech is the one that's probably the most reliable, and you can get them on Amazon for like $10-12. And it's going to allow us to take a NVMe drive, just a standard NVMe drive, and adapt it into the pinout that we need, the interface that we need to put it into this MacBook Pro. So let's take a look at what we're starting with, and we're going to open it up and start working on it. So let's start off by going up into the About This Mac screen, and we see this is a 2015, mid-2015, 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro, 2.2 gigahertz quad-core i7, 16 gigabytes of RAM. All of that is absolutely perfect. And then once we look over at the storage, we can see that we start off with just a 250 gigabyte drive. Now by the time you add a couple programs to this, there's not going to be a whole lot of room left to do anything. So a machine like this would be perfect for photo editing, video editing, and you're just not going to be able to store any data on there. So we are going to rip that bad boy out and throw this guy in, which is a 1 terabyte NVMe drive. And that's going to give us a lot of breathing room for our programs and all of our saved data. So before we take the old drive out of this laptop, there's a couple other things we need to do. According to the Sintech Adapter instructions, you need to make sure that your laptop here has been upgraded to at least macOS Mojave. And that's because Mojave added some firmware support for NVMe drives. And if you have an older version of macOS, that firmware probably didn't get copied onto the computer yet. So you need to make sure that you do upgrade your macOS before you do this install. That's going to get the firmware that you need on there. Another thing that you need to do is you need to create a USB boot drive of the installer for whatever version of macOS you're going to do. Now I've got videos that I will link down in the description below on how to create a USB boot drive that will install macOS. I've even got a video where I made this particular drive, which has 4 different versions of macOS. So go ahead and check those out. Make that thumb drive before you go any further, because you need to do that with your computer before you start taking out the old hard drive. So let's go ahead and shut this thing down, and we are going to start opening up and changing out this hardware. Alright, to get this job done, we're going to need a couple tools. We're going to start off with the necessary tools to open it up and get the thing taken apart. And I always use my trusty Strabato kit because it is cheap and it is awesome. Grab it on eBay for $20 to $30 depending on what sale is going on. and it's got every bit you could ever imagine. In this case, we're going to use the one that they call the Star 1.2. It's also called a Pentalobe 5, and that's going to take all of these screws off the bottom of the case. You can't just use the regular tiny Phillips like you do on the older MacBooks. So we're going to use that to take that off. We're also going to need a T5 Torx to get the hard drive out. So we're going to have that ready to go, and then some kind of a spudger or prying tool to disable the battery once we get in there. And of course, like I said, you're going to need this Sintech adapter. I'll have a link to this down in the description below. And then of course you'll need whatever size hard drive you want. I chose to go with a 1 terabyte because I had one lying around here brand new, and I think that's going to be plenty big for what I want to do with this laptop. But you can go up to a 2 terabyte if you want to, or you can go real cheap and just get a 500 gigabyte. But let's go ahead and take these screws out. I'm going to take these screws out, and I'll be right back when I'm done. Alright, so I've taken the 10 screws out, and I put them on my little magnetic mat that comes with that toolkit. And in this particular model, they all look the same size, but these back 2 middle ones are actually a tiny bit smaller than the rest. So having this kind of mat like this is allowing me to get them all back where they're supposed to be without putting the wrong screw in the wrong hole. So I'm going to set that to the side. And unlike other MacBooks, these have a couple clips inside here that hold the case down. So when I lift this up, you might hear a pop, and that's just popping those clips. And when we put this thing back together, we want to remember to place it down and then push those 2 clips in. So let's see how this goes. In this case, I didn't even feel them pop up. So nice and easy. When I put it back together, I'll see if I can get those seated in there. But they sit right down in these 2 little channels right here. So here's the machine. So looking inside here, we can see a little bit of dust has built up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this into the other room and blow all that dust off. But first I'm going to disconnect the battery connector. So right underneath this little mat right here, underneath this sticker, it's going to be a battery connector. So let's go ahead and get in there and take that thing out. Alright, so I've rotated this thing around 180 degrees just to get a better picture of here. So I'm going to peel the sticker up. And after I do that, I'm just going to take probably this little flat edge right here and just pick a spot under here and just give it a little wiggle pry, and then pop up it goes. Now we don't have to take the battery all the way out. We're just going to bend this back a little bit, and that's going to allow us to be safe just in case we drop anything in here. It's not going to short anything out that has these batteries powered up to it. So let me go ahead and take this into the other room, get rid of some of this dust, and we'll be back and we'll start working on this guy right here. That's the hard drive. Alright, so I got some of the dust cleaned out. I'll clean out some more later. But right now we're going to go ahead and take this old SSD out. I've switched the drive over to the T5 or Torx 5 bit from the kit. And we're just going to take this guy right on out of there. And this drive should lift up a tiny bit and then just kind of wiggle it away from the connector. So I just pulled it to the left, and there she is. So we can set that one aside, and now we've got our new NVMe drive, and we've got our Sintech adapter. And you can see by the amount of pins here on the top versus on the bottom, there's really only one way we can plug this thing in. So let's go ahead and take our drive, put it in the adapter, make sure it's fully seated, and now we're ready to plug this right back in. So plugging it right in the same way we took the other one out, just kind of line it up, make sure you push it all the way in there, and there I got a little snap that clicked it in there. And now I'm ready to take the same screw that I just took out and send it right back in there to hold it down. And that is it. So that adapter makes that NVMe drive, that standard NVMe drive, the same size that's required to replace the OEM Apple hard drive. Alright, so now that the new drive is in there, we're just going to put the battery connector back down, put the case on it, and I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to start putting macOS on the new hard drive. So I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back together. I'm not going to put the screws in yet. I always like to just put the lid down, turn it over, make sure everything's working right, and then once we're done with everything, I'll go ahead and put those screws back in. So let's get this put back together and get some software on there. Alright, so I got it powered up and I booted it to this USB drive here, which happens to have 4 different versions of macOS. I've got a video on how to make one of these. I'll link that down below also. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on macOS Monterey, which is the newest version here, and we're going to go ahead and get that installed, and I will see you back when that is done. Alright, and here it is, all installed with macOS. So let's go ahead and go back up in here and look at about this Mac, and you can see it installed macOS Monterey right off that thumb drive, and everything here is obviously the same. So let's go ahead and go over to the storage tab, and we see we got our brand new 1 terabyte SSD. So now we got plenty of room here to install whatever we need to, save whatever we need to, and not worry about running out of space anytime soon. So one more thing I want to do, let's go back over to Overview, go into the System Report, and let's look right here at NVMe or NVMe Express and look at our new drive. And we want to look at this right here, trim support. And on this particular drive it says yes. So I've got a video that explains what trim support is and how to enable it. If you put in a new hard drive into your computer and it says no, then watch that video and make sure you understand what trim support is and why you may want to enable it. It only takes a couple seconds, so go ahead and check that out. Now before I say goodbye, let's talk about what you might want to do with this guy. Since we took it out, they do make drive enclosures that you can put this in and use it as a USB external drive, but the price of the drive enclosure is so high that it's really not worth putting that 256 gigabyte drive in there. You can get a brand new NVMe drive and drive enclosure for much cheaper. I would say you'd probably even get like a 500 gig for the same price as you'd get the enclosure for one of these guys. So just stick it on the shelf, put it in something protective, and just keep it just in case anything happens. You can always put it back in if you want to. So that is going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of it. If you learned something, go ahead and smash that like button. If you like this kind of stuff and want to see more, check out the channel and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can see all kinds of neat stuff. I thank you as always for watching, and until next time, peace out and geek out.